Hello, I'm Wizard Deadlaws. I'm going to play a BECMI D&D campaign, and I will be doing it solo. I intend, well I hope, to take a party of heroes through several adventure modules from level 1 up to level 14. Some of you will know what BECMI stands for. I will admit that last year I didn't. It stands for Basic, Expert, Companion, Master and Immortal. These are the 5 D&D rule sets that were released in the 1980s by Frank Menser. I bought the first 2, the Basic Red and the Blue Expert, way back then. These versions are copyrighted to 1983, and that ties in with when I can remember I bought them. Even though they look fairly well used, the truth is they aren't. I played the basic set once with a couple of my brothers and 2 of their friends. We played through the adventure given in the Dungeon Master's Manual. Later I created a small dungeon using the rules given, and I played that with my younger brother and a cousin, and that's where it all ended. Despite this, I bought the expert rule set for characters level 4 to 14. It also came with the Isle of Dread. I also bought a module called Horror on the Hill. Why I bought these, I don't know. I was clearly detached from reality as a teenager. To play enough games to need the expert rules, you need to overcome several hurdles. First is you need to have friends. Next, you need to have friends who are into D&D. And third, you need to have D&D friends you can meet up with regularly. I failed the first hurdle as I didn't have any friends. I don't know what I was thinking. I didn't buy these books because I was excited to get playing it. I bought it so I could look at it and imagine what it would be like to have friends to play with. However, this didn't last long, as when I left my teenage years behind and went to university, I became very popular and had lots of friends. Good times, but none of them were into D&D. The other thing about being a student is you're constantly changing your dress, packing up things and giving them away. That's actually been a theme for a lot of my life, but of all the things that I've brought with me everywhere and never given away were these books. Even though they have remained largely unread, I've kept them with me. I don't really know why, but I feel that when I start this campaign, I'll find out. I love the artwork, inside and out. These covers by Larry Elmore are excellent. If you look online, you can see the previous edition's artwork, and it's, well, frankly, a bit sad by comparison. I'm sure it has its fans. This red box set apparently sold well. I'm sure a lot of that was due to this cover art. I don't know what TSR paid Larry Elmore, but it wasn't enough. And the blue cover is even better. There's more Elmore artwork on the inside, and also by Jeff Easley. I prefer Elmore's work. I've seen Easley's colour work, and it's better than his black and white. I've heard this art reviewed as a bit 1980s, as an apology. I actually think that's the highest of praise. Imagine looking these over while lying on your bed, and the radio could play anything from Kim Wilde to Jethro Tull, and your bedroom walls are covered in Rodney Matthews posters, and there's a heavy metal magazine called Kerrang lying on the floor. A bit 1980s is as good as it gets. There are several illustrations in the expert set that I really like. There's this thief on page 17, he looks suitably craggy. There's this wizard opposite on page 16. You can tell he's evil because he's dressed in black and wearing bits of dead animal. And we can tell, due to the skilled character work of Elmore, that he has cast a spell on this young woman, and what even that spell might be. It seems to be this Gesh spell, listed above. This spell forces a victim to either perform or avoid a certain action. Okay, so he's the Harvey Weinstein of Mastara. But my favourite picture is this one on page 7. It illustrates the cleric spell Speak with Dead just beside it. There's a lot going on here, but it isn't the cleric or his friends, or even the ghost that I like. It was this rocky hillside, this gnarly pine tree, this forest and the mountains. Even though this is black and white, Elmore is really good at capturing light. I really get a sense of the outdoor wilderness, and I can remember just wanting to be there. For me, this was a very evocative picture. So that's the background. What happens next? I intend to play a series of adventures with a party of 5 characters This is enough to handle playing solo. I think you're expected to average a party of 7 for BECMI rules, so my party will be hiring retainers to help. I've rolled them up and given them names and backstories and personalities. This might be a mistake, as I will explain later. I will begin with 3 and then add the other 2 soon after. We'll begin with the adventures in the basic rule set. So I will play through the small cave on page 15 of the player manual. Then I'll play the adventures in Castle Mistemere in the DM's manual. This is 2 extra levels. Level 2 has been drawn on page 13 and level 3 is to be entirely invented. I found several versions of level 2 online and they all seem to be the same. I eventually traced their origin to a small 7-page adventure called Kilbargle, so I will be playing level 2 of that. I will probably try a bit of level 3, but it's very difficult and everyone could get killed off very quickly. My characters aren't suicidal and they will back off if a fight is too deadly. Then I will play a small tutorial adventure called The Eye of Traldor. I could only find it as a PDF scan. It was a bit dirty and low res, but with a bit of Photoshop and CorelDRAW, I managed to clean it up and print it into this booklet format. I even trimmed it to size, so I'm quite pleased with that. It's an adventure that gets mixed reviews. It has the advantage of having hints and tips for DMs, which I need. It is also fairly linear, which will be an easy way to get broken in. Then I'll play Keep on the Borderlands. This seems to be ubiquitous. It seems that everyone has to play this once in a lifetime. It's also a tutorial game, but it's much less linear than the previous one. It is what I've recently learned a sandbox game. A lot of background detail is given, and it's up to me what I make of it. It's got a bit of a hex crawl going on, another new term for me. Though this is a grid of squares, not hexagons, the party is expected to explore the grid outdoors square by square. Next, I'll play Horror on the Hill. This is similar to Keep on the Borderlands, but isn't as well regarded. It has its fans. However, I did buy it all those years ago, so I will be playing it for nostalgia's sake. This is a reprint as I lost my original. After that, I'll play Night's Dark Terror. I know little about this, but it's universally acclaimed. It also seems to bridge between level 3 and 4, which takes us to the expert rules. I'm unsure what I'll be doing then, but I've got time to figure that out. I will have to play the Isle of Dread, because you do. And I thought that was me all organised and ready to go, until I saw a couple of reviews of this, The Veiled Society. This is another PDF I cleaned and printed. There's very little dungeon crawling, and with the options to avoid much of the combat. It's a murder mystery set in the capital of Specularum, where you get caught up in a web of intrigue with 3 feuding families and some underground assassins. How this will work, since the person running it, and who knows who the culprit is also the same person trying to solve the mystery. The whodunit isn't really that difficult. I think this adventure comes to life because the players have some clues as to where to go next, but not enough to be certain. So there will be plenty of back and forth debates as to where to explore in the city. I realised that if I was to bring this to life playing solo, then the city would have to play a larger part. The text says you don't need an in-depth knowledge of Specularum to run this, but I will have to do some homework. And here, for the first time, I will have to engage with the campaign world of Mystara. So let's go back to 1983 with the expert book and the Isle of Dread. This is the Grand Duchy of Karamikos. In this map, this capital city is called Specularium, and the Isle of Dread gave a much bigger map of more of the continent. And what daydreaming fantasist doesn't love looking at maps? But since my BECMI gaming ended in 1983, these lands remained dead and empty. Little did I know that TSR had written a whole series of gazetteers filled with the history of peoples of this land. And recently, in 2013, there is Threshold magazine, which is fan content with even more histories and peoples. I downloaded the edition for Specularum. It's 260 pages long, so yeah, I do have my homework to do. I think I will slot Veiled Society in between Keep on the Borderlands and Horror on the Hill. If this campaign is taking longer than I anticipated, I might shelve Horror on the Hill for another day, nostalgia or not. How long will it take to get through all of this? Well, I've followed some online games that people stream and put onto YouTube. I believe the software they use is called Roll20. It's like a Zoom meeting in Faerun. You'll know it. There's one group that's run by a guy called Dungeon Musings. Big shout out to them. They were my pandemic entertainment. They have sessions that last 2 hours or more, and one of their playlists has 300 episodes in it. I really don't think it will take that long. Well, I hope not. There won't be much inter-party banter between players, as there's only me. And there won't be too much quizzing of the DM, as that's also me. I will have to do some in-game admin as I play, keeping track of time and stuff like light sources. I'll find a way to keep that minimal. I'm also not an actor, so don't expect too much in the way of funny voices and heightened emotions, but I do like storytelling, so I will be adding some narrated passages to tie people and places together. And if my characters find themselves in a predicament, I will stop and discuss what I think is going on and what they can see. You might look at this list of adventures and think that's a lot for levels 1 to 3. Will my characters reach level 4, 5 or even 6? Several reasons why that doesn't worry me. First, I'm playing with a small party, so an extra level isn't going to be that unbalanced, I hope. Secondly, and most importantly, BECMI rules are deadly. If any of my original 5 characters who start in Castle Mistermere make it to the end of the Night's Dark Terror, it will be a miracle. They'll probably all die one by one and get replaced. So a lot of XP is going to be taken to the grave, again and again. The ones who make it to the end will have survived some brutal dice rolling Darwinism. And the rule books let you know straight up from the beginning that you should expect people to die. Here is Alina on page 4 looking pious and kind. Here she is on page 6 looking brave and defiant as she faces off Bargle. And here she is on page 8 dead. And here on page 7 is her dead ass slung over the hero's shoulder. When your hit points are at 0, you're dead. There's no in-between state of being on the verge of death, and healing is rare. How much character development can I do? I did think about my 5 protagonists, and I did make up stories on how they get together and what they think of their first adventures, and impressions of each other. I even went online to look for suitable portraits, but then it's BECMI. By next week, they could all be gone. The rule of thumb seems to be easy come, easy go. You can roll a BECMI character up in 5 minutes flat, and they can be dead by the afternoon. It's very different from investing ages into character creation and thinking about subclasses and builds. There are no builds in this rule set. As I said before, a lot of XP will be taken to the grave, as will a lot of investment into character development. Despite all of this, the party, in some form, will make it through, and what I hope for most is that one of the adventures will take us through an alpine mountain range with clear skies and distant horizons, just like this on page 7 of the expert rules. I'm really excited to get started. I've already rolled up 5 characters, so in the next episode we'll meet them. You're invited to join me. I will enjoy your company. Please subscribe if you want to be kept up to date with this ongoing saga. But one last word, here's a list of YouTubers that were a positive influence on me to revive a 40-year-old dream. BECMI Berserker, The Lost Adventurer, Solo Dungeon Crawler, Dungeon Musings, Arctic Choke Dip, Mr. Welch, Battling Barrow Gaming.